Welcome to Liberty Action Network, where we address contemporary issues that could affect you. You ever watch a TV and you have some official out there telling you how they're going to run your life and hit you with some more legislation or more restrictions or more regulations, and you just want to scream? Well, our guest tonight has done more than scream. Our guest, Nick Purpura, has decided that he will sue officials in all three governments, in all three branches of the New Jersey government and law enforcement for violating the constitutional and civil rights of New Jersey citizens, centering around the passage and enforcement of New Jersey gun control laws. And he's not an attorney. And I understand he has no phalanx of high-powered attorneys sitting at his table. So let's meet Nick Purpura. Nick, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Al.
Nick is a former managing director and partner in Bear Stearns & Company. He's a newspaper publisher. He's a chaplain for AMVETS and Worldwide Ministries. He's the original founder of Project Homefront, which is a military-oriented charity. And he served in both the Army and the Navy. So I read your petition in suing. It was 40-some-odd pages. My eyes fell out as I was reading it. But let's just frame this for the folks at home. You're suing officials in all three branches of New Jersey government and law enforcement for violating the constitutional rights of New Jersey citizens. Specifically, you're arguing in your brief that these officials, representing the legislature, the governor's office, and the judiciary, and law enforcement, have been conspiring to pass legislation and then enforce that same legislation, which legislation itself violates the constitutional rights of New Jersey citizens.
That's correct.
Right? And in doing this, as you assert in your petition, they create felons out of citizens overnight.
That's correct.
And you also assert they are in violation of the Second Amendment's right to bear arms and other articles of the Constitution. You want relief and remedy from these constitutional laws. And finally, the enforcement of such laws, you say, is a violation of law in and of itself.
That's correct.
Right? Do we have that, frame that right for the...
I think you did.
Okay, good. All right, excellent. But look, let's take this piece by piece. We'll break it down so folks can understand it. Briefly, how are gun control laws in New Jersey a violation of the Constitution? Because, you know, you've probably heard this, well, we're just doing it for public safety. Well, so just explain that. How are they a violation?
Let's clarify something.
Yeah.
Whether the legislature, the governor, the law enforcement, or the judiciary is doing something for public safety, if it violates the Constitution, it's illegal.
Okay.
It's clear as that. Now, New Jersey's basically run here as a police state. What we have here is men deciding what rights we still have. We have inalienable rights. And it's very interesting. The government in no way can take a right and make it a privilege, because then it's no longer a right. Mm-hmm. And that's what they've been doing. Mm-hmm. In a shocking manner. But in the interim of doing it, they've been making law-abiding citizens criminals, and the criminals are still out there running free. And the most interesting thing about it here in New Jersey, we have criminals who commit felonies with firearms, and they plea bargain down, or they're let go, or they're recidivist in jail. But the citizen who violates one of these de facto laws. Now, for your audience, when I say de facto, what I'm saying is it's not law. What they're doing is instituting legislation as if it was legal law. So it's de facto. It's not law. But they've been enforcing that. Mm-hmm. How do you enforce something that's not legal?
Just to go back one step, we talked about public safety. What you're saying is that the intention of the law doesn't matter if it's unconstitutional.
Even if their intentions are worthy, they're high, they just really care, it's irrelevant, because the Constitution cannot be violated.
Okay.
The moment, if you could take one inalienable right from a citizen, you could take them all. What are you? You're going to interpret the Constitution as it suits you? It doesn't work that way. And what we have in New Jersey is just totally outrageous, as you'll find out as we go through this particular legal action. And
okay, so let's jump into a piece of it. How is each branch of the New Jersey government involved in this? First, let's take the legislature. What are they doing?
Well, let me put it this way. Unlike, well, what the legislature is doing, let me say this. This is a wheel conspiracy. If we have a chart we could put up, and I think for your audience, once they look at the chart, they're going to discover a circle. Why I say a circle, there are two types of conspiracies in the United States. There is originally a wheel conspiracy and a chain conspiracy. What has taken place in New Jersey is a wheel conspiracy and a chain conspiracy. So when you refer to the chart, the first thing we have is a legislature, which I'll go into. Then we have the governor, the executive branch. We have law enforcement enforcing unconstitutional laws, and we have judges who took it upon themselves the king could do no wrong and became king. And they don't even have subject matter jurisdiction. So we can start from the beginning of the conspiracy with the hub of this enterprise, because a state is an enterprise. And for this particular litigation, we're invoking RICO. And you say,
now let me just stop you for a second, okay? Because the folks want to know, I think, because we have these branches of government, right, and we have law enforcement. They basically want to know what role they play in this. You mentioned conspiracy, but what do they do? Okay. That is part of this violation.
Okay. For this particular lawsuit, we have to show the courts a pattern of activity that's been ongoing. And in a RICO action, it used to be just for the mafia and so forth, till some sharp attorneys decided, hey, wait a minute, if a conspiracy is a conspiracy, if civilians are just as guilty. So what we have is a legislature. We'll start with that. And let's discuss the legislature.
Yeah, let's do
the
that.
Legislature, you don't need the chart for that.
Right.
That's the number one on your chart. The legislature is the hub of this particular conspiracy. And you say, they're a hub. Yeah. Here we get together a bunch of, let's say, fine individuals decide that we got to enforce these laws. We got to enforce laws. We have to protect the public, and the heck with the Constitution. Let's write laws. Just like that. We're in charge of this state. I mean, many of them think that New Jersey left the United States, and it's a nation of its own. So
they write the laws.
They write the law.
That's the legislature.
And in our particular state, the Democrats control the legislature. Now, we'll get to that with Governor Christie in a moment.
Okay.
A little down the line.
So the role of the legislature in all this is, it starts, they write the laws.
Right. And
okay.
they do not literally care what the Constitution says.
Okay. Then we have the governor's office.
Well, that's...
What is the role of the governor's office in this whole thing?
The governor has an obligation to adhere to the Constitution. Now, the legislature, by the way, let me backtrack. Each legislative representative that we have takes an oath to the Constitution to uphold it and defend it. In their mind, they are above the Constitution. What has developed in America, which really partially spurred me to do this lawsuit, is, I wish they would stop speaking. What we have in America, no longer do we have constitutional supremacy, we have judicial supremacy, legislative supremacy, executive office supremacy. I see that nowhere in the United States Constitution.
Okay. But let's get to the governor's office then. You mentioned the legislature, they write the law. The governor then, what's the governor's office role in this whole thing?
The governor is supposed to review the law. If it's constitutional, sign it into law.
Okay. If it's constitutional.
If it, you see, that's another thing that most.
But if it's not constitutional,
he's obligated to not to sign it.
And it's his judgment on that.
It's not a judgment. He has 200 attorneys.
Okay, so
it's not a judgment. It's
so then
supposed to be
the governor's office involves his attorneys
to review the
review
legislation and to see whether it is legitimate.
Okay, it's constitutional, right?
That's correct.
Yes. Okay. Then we have the judiciary.
Oh, well, the judiciary, I want to, in New Jersey, we have judicial supremacy. Well, just like the United States now.
What does that mean, judicial supremacy?
In other words, no longer do we have constitutional supremacy. They decide to interpret what the law is, not what the law states on the books. What they decide what the law should be. Now, we have to go for that. Let's backtrack to the third element, the law enforcement that are enforcing the law. Now, in this particular case, we're discussing the right to carry a firearm, the right to bear arms. The Second Amendment is very specific. Every citizen in the United States has a right to bear arms. It doesn't say bear arms because the state of New Jersey allows it. The Bill of Rights. See,
it's a constitutional right to bear arms.
The Bill of Rights is not a right of a citizen to carry a gun. It's not any of those the Bill of Rights was instituted to stop government from interfering with an inalienable right.
Okay.
And in fact, very interesting right here in New Jersey, Article 1, Section 1, first paragraph says we have these inalienable rights. It doesn't say firearm, it says inalienable rights. It says right there in Article 1, Section 1, we have the right to protect our property. It says there in Article 1, Section 1, we have the right to defend ourselves and our family.
Okay.
And protect it.
Let me just jump in for a second because I want to make sure we get back to the judiciary. We looked at the role of the legislature. We looked at the role of the governor's office in this, what they're supposed to do with regard to this. Now, do you want to go to the law enforcement first and then come back to judiciary?
Well, yeah, law enforcement. Because
so, all right, what's the role of the law enforcement then?
Law enforcement's job is to enforce the laws of our state and our country.
That are passed by the legislature.
But that's true, except there's a caveat here. When a law enforcement officer takes an oath, and he joins the force, I don't care what municipality in New Jersey, his first oath is to the Constitution of the United States, to enforce and protect the Constitution. The second part of that oath for a police officer in New Jersey is to enforce the laws of the state of New Jersey.
Okay.
Now, you cannot enforce an unconstitutional law. I was in the military. For example, you are not to obey an unconstitutional order. You're not to obey it. And I'm not going to go into many laws, but I wrote down just a couple of examples of what the Supreme Court said for your audience, because this is not Nick saying the Constitution, like the crowds out there say. I'm supporting this lawsuit with Supreme Court precedent.
Right.
Not 2 cases, not 3 cases. I'm talking about, in the petition alone, I think you read about 60 cases and violations of 4 of the 5 articles of the Constitution and amendments, the violations of amendments that are being violated here in New Jersey are unbelievable. It's not just the Second Amendment. It's the Fifth Amendment. It's the 8th Amendment, cruel and human treatment. It's the 13th Amendment, incarceration.
Okay.
It's the 14th Amendment, equal rights.
So just to get back to law enforcement then, okay? Law enforcement's job is to enforce a law if it's constitutional.
Yes, but now you
Right.
brought up earlier you wanted to discuss the legislature. That's the hub.
Yes.
So what did the legislators do to violate the rights of not the Republicans, not the Democrats, not the liberal, not the conservative, but every citizen in the state of New Jersey? Well, we have the New Jersey Safety Administration, the law. I think it's 2C58-4. You have to have a justifiable need to bear arms. What? I've studied the Constitution for numerous years. I don't see any justifiable. Then we had a law in 2000, I think it was, the original Graves Act. It was fantastic. It was locking up criminals for a set amount of time for a crime. Well, what took place? In 2008, the state of New Jersey decided to institute the Graves Act of 2008. That moment, almost every law-abiding citizen in New Jersey with a firearm was a target for jail.
So they changed that. They changed the law, right? And made it, once it was good, it was appropriate, it was constitutional,
Yeah.
they changed it.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
It was the Mayor Graves who put it in. I thought it was fantastic. He kept seeing the same guys out there in the street.
And that was the legislature.
The legislature. Now, the legislature, when they decided, well, no. You have to have a justifiable need to bear arms. Justifiable need to carry a weapon? Where'd that come from? And there's something I want to talk about that. That is a very important factor. No, there's no justifiable need. If I'm a law-abiding citizen, if I said to go to my police station and my municipal police officer, I want my permit to carry a firearm, though I shouldn't have to. By the way, we'll get to that too, because that's really interesting. Because we'll do that when we talk about the criminal, the men who were locked up because of carrying firearms. But you had the 2000 in the legislature, 2008. Then you had 2013. They made it stricter. In 2014, they did it again. In fact, in 2013, after the Newton, Connecticut supposed massacre, which we still don't know the whole story about that. That was an insane person that did this, not a law-abiding citizen, and not with a legal firearm, because he didn't have any legal firearms that he owned. They passed. They tried to rush through.
You're still talking about the legislature now, right?
43 pieces of legislation. They got the governor to sign 23 of them. Every one of them violates the Constitution.
Okay.
Then you can go even further. I mean, what we have.
Nick, let me just jump in for a second, because I know you have a wealth of knowledge on this. I'm just concerned we might run out of time. You've laid the basis that the legislature has done a number of things to violate the Constitution by passing these kinds of laws. I'm interested then. We started
to the governor.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned the governor. What the governor does is supposed to sign legislation that's constitutional.
He took that oath.
And not if it's not constitutional.
That's correct.
Right? Then we go to the law enforcement, whose job it is to implement these laws. And you were saying, but they really shouldn't implement them if they're not constitutional.
Not only that, the laws that passed in New Jersey gave the authority to a police chief to decide whether or not you have the right to have a permit. Now, wait a minute. I didn't know he had that authority.
Now, who is that has that authority?
The police chief.
The police chief, okay.
Now, let's say the police chief is a good police chief and a constitutionalist. And he says, okay, you're right, Mr. Purpura, you're entitled to carry a firearm. Here's the permit. Oh, no, it doesn't work that way. You see, in the New Jersey laws, which is unbelievable, you have to get a judge, a Superior Court judge, to sign off on that particular case, whether he will decide at his own discretion whether you have a justifiable need for a firearm.
Yeah.
whoa, whoa. I want to know who died and made him boss.
Another violation of a constitutional right.
Worse than a violation of the Constitution. Even though it's a violation of the Constitution,
Right.
he could be sued. Who gave him subject matter jurisdiction to take it upon himself to decide who is worthy to adhere to his constitutional civil rights?
We're talking about the police chief now,
The
right?
judge.
So,
The judge.
the judge.
The police chief might be a
So
good
the
man.
judge is taking on authority that he really doesn't have.
He does not have authority to do that.
Okay.
Oh, now, they will argue that...
We're going to get to that. We're going to get to what the arguments were.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Let's stick with the.
So
the-
now we see four entities. We see the legislature, we see the executive branch, we see law enforcement, and the third branch of government, the judiciary, all involved in your right to carry a firearm.
Right. They all have a role
They all have a role.
in actually violating your right, the way they're doing
Absolutely.
it now. Okay. Now, you allege a conspiracy, right, among plaintiffs
That's correct.
to deny New Jersey citizens a constitutional right.
absolutely.
And you allege it's similar to a criminal conspiracy and therefore falls under RICO, right?
It's a civil, in this particular case, I would love to do it on the criminal because I believe they're criminals.
Right.
I believe what
civil.
they're doing, this is a
Civil
civil
RICO.
RICO case.
All right.
And I
Now-
want to make clear, Doctor.
Yeah.
We did not ask for damages. We did not ask for punishment for their unconstitutional behavior. We only asked for one thing: restoration of our constitutional civil right.
Right.
That's all this is all about.
Right.
Now, can they be sued? Absolutely. And you say conspiracy.
Now, let me ask you this, because when you say conspiracy, in people's minds, many people's minds, they will see people sitting together in a room,
Oh, they don't have
talking about each other.
No.
And so I think you need to clarify, when you say conspiracy, what do you mean?
Well, conspiracy is an act of wrongdoing by a group of people, and you have to form a pattern of activity. That brings the conspiracy is the pattern of activity. If we go to the chart for a second, you see the circle.
Go to the chart.
You'll look at the circle. Now you have the hub, which is the legislature. They sat in a room, they decided that they were going to violate the Constitution. They can't say 10th Amendment. You see, there's an amendment before the 10th Amendment that sets everything straight. It's called the 9th Amendment. And also the Articles of Constitution. You cannot violate the Constitution in any way.
Okay, you're saying, though, that you don't have to sit in a room
No,
and discuss this.
no.
And so what
You don't have to know, each plier does not have to know in conspiracy. I think it's under 1961-4
Right,
of the RICO
right,
statute.
right.
No, as long as you, in fact, even the secretary that put you in is part of the fish in the pond. Believe it or not. This person didn't know anything. They didn't know. They don't have to know. They're following a policy of de facto law, okay, that they have no authority to follow.
Okay, so it has to do with, they can be acting independently, however, they are acting in a way, they're
they know
acting
that-
upon a law that's not constitutional.
That's correct. And it goes,
Okay.
it's even more. Now, I want someone to show me anywhere in the Constitution of the United States where, and in fact, in judicial law, where a judge can decide. Now, Sweeney, the head of the Senate there, he brags about his firearm. He wears it. My representative in the Assembly, he wears his firearm. What happened to the equal protection? Why are their rights, why are their rights surpass mine? Now, let's look at what has happened with the police, and then what's happened with the courts, if you'd like. I mean, I don't know, you're doing the interview, so I'll go, you have a catch question before that?
Well, I just want to make sure that we get all the pieces in here that people can understand.
They
And
could go to the website and look at everything like you did, Doc.
yeah, they could do that. They're probably not going to do that. But I'm wondering here now, since we put these pieces together, And we are now talking about, and we haven't really talked, you talked a little bit about how citizens are affected.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay? So I wonder if you can give us now some examples about how what you've talked about so far and this violation of citizens' constitutional rights, how have some citizens been turned into felons?
Okay. In fact, even before I go right to the top, I want to go to the bottom. Just recently, weeks ago, a North Carolina repairman came up here with an emergency. And he came up here to help New Jersey. He got stopped for a ticket, and under the laws in almost every single state, if you're stopped by a police officer and you have a firearm and a permit to carry a firearm and it's in your possession, you turn around and say, "Officer, I want you aware that I have a firearm in the car." And this is for our officers' protection, which I think is excellent. You're under arrest. On what? I have a permit to carry, concealed. You're under arrest. This is New Jersey. And that poor man, Brian Fletcher, is facing 3 years in jail because New Jersey says you can't. You can't exercise your constitutional rights unless the judge or the police or the judge or the police chief say you have that right.
So he couldn't bring a gun into New Jersey?
Not concealed. Not
concealed. Okay,
he
so
crossed
that's
the border. And I'll tell you another thing. What about Shania Allen? She came across this border without knowing New Jersey law. She got stopped for changing lanes. In Pennsylvania, you must tell a police officer you have a gun. She turned around. She said, "Officer, I got my ticket." You know, she was going to get a ticket. "I want you aware that in my bag I do have a firearm and I have a permit to carry it." Well, we have in the South Jersey a rabbit prosecutor who put her in jail that day. She's a mother of, I think, 2 children.
And what did she violate in New Jersey law that would put her in jail?
She had a gun in the car. She had a firearm in the car.
Okay.
That's why and he kept her in jail, a mother of 2, who got that permit, that permit to carry, conceal a weapon, because she was attacked and her children. And she was for safety. That was for her personal safety. She went to jail, and they wouldn't even put her out. She was a nurse. She lost her job. She wasn't even allowed out on bail. They kept her in there for 43 days. This rabid, disgusting, and I say that because I can't believe any prosecutor in New Jersey would do what that man did.
And I just want our audience to understand it's simply because she was coming from Pennsylvania where that was legal.
Across the bridge.
And she came across the bridge into New Jersey, and she had a gun,
and
a firearm in her car.
Her Second Amendment rights were violated.
And because of that, she was arrested.
Well, she's not alone.
Right.
What about, what was it, Josie, I think it was Josie Bray. No, Justin Bray. Now, this is from Pennsylvania. Here's a young man that his friends pick him up at his job. He's getting married, and take him to Atlantic City for his bachelor party. They cross over to New Jersey. He has his firearm. He's not going to go in the casino carrying a firearm and drinking. He puts it in a drawer in New Jersey. He realizes when they come home for the bachelor party, he left his firearm. Goes back the next morning. And Justin is now going to be a felon, and they're negotiating.
Nick, I got to jump in. We're just about out of time. We have a lot more to cover, so can you come back? We do part 2.
Absolutely. The public must be aware of this.
Thank you all for watching in. This is Liberty Action Network. You want more information, please go to studentsforabetterfuture.com. Thank you. We'll be doing part 2 very soon. Hello and welcome to Liberty Action Network. This is part 2 with Nick Purpura, where we're talking about the violation of New Jersey citizens' constitutional rights, centering on gun control legislation and the Second Amendment. Where we left off, Nick, was when we were talking about specific examples of how citizens can be simply and quickly turned into felons when they run afoul of the New Jersey gun control laws. And you started to talk about a couple of cases. I wonder if you can give us a few more incidents.
Yeah, there are two that are really interesting. There was a young man, Stephen Josie Davis, who was an armored car driver waiting to get on the police force. His younger sister came into the garage, so he grabbed his gun and he put it into the glove compartment of his car to get it out of the way. Not realizing he drove later. He got stopped. All of a sudden he had a gun in his car, lost his job, became a felon, and they want to jail him. Now, that's really interesting. He's one. But really, let's get down to the most ridiculous part of the Graves Act. We have a 72-year-old school teacher who's driving his car, gets stopped in a traffic violation again. In his glove compartment, he has a 300-year-old flintlock pistol. He's a collector. The police officer, to his credit, didn't want to lock him up. But the chief said, lock him up, and we're going to do ballistics on a 300-year-old cap and ball pistol. There was no cap, there was no ball, there was no flint, no powder. And he got locked up. Now, he will lose his pension if he's a felon. These kind of things just over the top. Now, I only named a few. And I want to bring out a point. The governor, after lots of pressure by numerous groups, including the NRA, pardoned Shani Allen. A pardon does not exonerate her. Mm-hmm. She's still a felon. Mm-hmm. Okay? I think Lamont, who was going to be the police officer, he pardoned him too. Excuse me, what is these pardons? Why are you pardoning him if it's a law? And why didn't you pardon Josie Bray? Why didn't you pardon Brian Atkins? You pardoned him after he spent 6-7 months in jail for the size of a magazine. They're illegal. They're unconstitutional infringement on the Second Amendment right. Now, I have something that I pulled out purposely because you mentioned about these crimes, and I think this is amazing. You know what the Supreme Court said in Miller versus the United States? The claim and exercise of a constitutional guaranteed right cannot be converted into a crime. That's the Supreme Court of the United States. It means nothing here in New Jersey. How about another one? There can be no sanction or penalty imposed upon one because of an exercise of a constitutional right. Hey, wait a minute. Am I reading this correct? How about another one? Right here in Pennsylvania. No state shall convert a liberty into a privilege, license it, charge a fee, and therefore unconstitutional. My all-time favorite, an unconstitutional act is not law. It confers no legal right. It imposes no duties. It affords no protection. It creates no office. It is in legal contemplation as inoperative as though it never had been passed. These are just a couple. There's, how about Birmingham, Alabama tried it. If a state converts a right and a liberty into a privilege, the citizen can ignore the license, the fee, and engage in that right and liberty with impunity. I have to pay every time I want to purchase another firearm, and I'm a target shooter. I have to pay to exercise my own right. I have to pay for a permit. Mm-hmm. The Supreme Court said I don't have to pay for it. Mm-hmm. The Constitution says I don't have to pay for it. In New Jersey, you pay. And they make you wait and wait and wait because they don't want the people armed. Mm-hmm. It's a police state. I don't know what they're afraid of, but the criminals, they're not going to obey any laws. Law-abiding citizens should not be put through this morass of illegal, unconstitutional behavior.
I read in your brief, a statement in there about the part of a percentage, only a small part of percentage of applications for, was it firearms? Or
you mean one of our own legislative people said, I think it's like less than, almost nil, almost like not even half of 1%.
Right.
Get it? Nothing. Nobody gets it. Oh, you get it if you're...
Don't get what? Say
a right to carry a firearm, or bear arms. Because in New Jersey, they instituted an unconstitutional provision that you must have a justifiable need. And if you do have an justifiable, let's go to the courts. A justifiable need. A man named Albert Alameda. This is really interesting. He applies for a permit. He's threatened. He picks up all the rents in Newark. He's threatened that the guy said, if you come to this place again, I'm going to cap you. I'm going to put a bullet right in your head. He goes and makes the police report and said, look, I can't go there. I want to carry my gun. I'm afraid. No. So he goes to the judge. Do you know what the judge said? Well, no, it could be dangerous. If you carry a gun, you could incite and somebody might get hurt. I've just been threatened. That is a justifiable need. And this moron says it could be dangerous for him to have a weapon to protect himself. And this judge, that's not the first one he's done this to. I'm going to give you an example.
Well, let me just say, is this why you, in your brief again, you allege that the defendants in this case, right, all the officials in the state, are engaging in reckless endangerment and deliberate indifference?
Well,
is this what you're referring to?
Well, would you not say if somebody threatens your life and you can't have a weapon to protect yourself, well, that's a justifiable need? That's not reckless endangerment?
That's what you're referring to.
Well, I'm not referring to that. What about the woman who was just killed a month and a half ago? She kept playing, please. You got a protective order. I'm being harassed. I'm afraid. Months. No. And she didn't want it to carry. She wanted it for her home. He was killed. She was killed. These people have blood on their hands.
Let me just step back a little bit. Just the fundamental stuff before you go on. Just a little fundamental thing. There's the right to carry, right, which is different from having a gun in your home.
Oh, no,
right?
I have to backtrack. And then I want to address that because that's going to be most interesting for your audience. A retired New York City police detective, Richard Morrell, applies for a permit to carry a gun. Now, throughout the whole United States, a police officer always is granted that because he might have locked up some lunatic felon who comes out of jail, it's going to kill him. Denied, right here in Monmouth County. You know, New York City Police Department, another one. Judge Oxley, denied. No justifiable need. This guy he's a detective who locked up numerous people. Denied. But there's so many more. Atkins, who's been, how about Drake, John Drake? Now, that's an interesting case. He took this all the way up to the Third Circuit. Okay? He took this to the Third Circuit. He's right. ATM machines, he has money. He goes through, in fact, in my own town, we have a gun dealer who's not allowed to carry a gun. He has at least 1,000 weapons in his house, but he's not allowed to carry a gun out of his house. He picks up weapons. They're endangering the people, the law-abiding citizen, by denying them their constitutional right to carry a firearm. I mean, this is very interesting. Drake took this to the Third Circuit. Now, two of the judges, I want to talk to the judiciary before you ask me those other questions. He goes to the Third Circuit. They turn around, because your question was good. The Third Circuit says, well, we're going to go on long-standing that New Jersey had these laws in effect forever. And because they are, we're going to let it stand. Well, wait a minute. The law is unconstitutional. Oh, in their decision they say, well, the legislative body could not have known they were burdening the Second Amendment. Wait a minute. We're going to let the illegal law stand. The New Jersey legislature could not have known they were going to be burdening the Second Amendment. They make an excuse. The world was flat to 1492. Should we say, Oh, well, it was long-standing. It was flat. So we're going to leave it flat.
So this sounds like part of that conspiracy where people
It is
reinforce
a
each
conspiracy.
other's...
We do not want people in New Jersey to have firearms to protect themselves. 50,000 gang members armed to the teeth in New Jersey, but you, John Q. Public, have to bear it. Worst is I'm a chaplain up at Newark, and my brother chaplains, most of them are African American. Their neighborhoods, they are prisoners to gangs and their own lawlessness. Not their lawlessness, the lawlessness in their neighborhood. They can't have a firearm. There's something wrong with this. And they say, well, the cities. And you know what one politician told me when I put down the legislation? Oh, we don't want them certain people to have guns. So I had witnesses. What do you mean you do not want certain people, those people, to have firearms? Well, those people in the cities? What people? Who are those people? Are they any different than me or you? You have a prejudiceness. You have, how do I say it? It's a conspiracy to keep the people of New Jersey unarmed and frightened.
Is this
subject?
Yeah.
Now, but let's
I'm just wondering, because you're talking about treating people differently. And I think in your brief you talked about unequal treatment.
That's right.
Right? As a violation of another
14th Amendment.
Of the 14th Amendment. Okay. This is just coming to me as you're going through the pieces, that there are many violations, not just the Second Amendment. There's many other violations.
Those men that were locked up, for example, they are under mandatory sentencing. So if you make a mistake and have a gun in the car, or extra bullets by accident, you leave them in your car, they're considered explosives, you go to jail for 3 to 5 years. Years in jail. Is that not cruel and inhuman punishment?
That sounds pretty
draconian. Yeah, draconian?
Yeah.
Machiavellian, whatever way you want to put it.
Draconian's good.
Draconian's good. Now, you know what's really interesting? I have to go to our governor. And why this is he's part of this conspiracy. Whoa! What do you mean he's part of the conspiracy? He only signed the laws. He didn't realize. He wasn't advised properly. Oh, no? Well, Mr. Christie, Governor Christie, excuse me, I don't want to be disrespectful, was in Whippany. And he was asked by the crowd, what about the Second Amendment? Well, I'm for the Second Amendment, but I can't do anything. I have a Democrat legislature, and they're just not going to pay attention to me. Oh, really? Well, I sent Governor Christie, excuse me, a letter in December 2014. And I told him about the decisions of the Supreme Court of the United States, and that New Jersey has unconstitutional legislation, and I asked him to institute an executive order to do away with unconstitutional Second Amendment violations. Do away with that Constitution through an executive order, which you have the power. If I'm wrong, Governor, please have your legal department, please tell me. You know what my answer was from Mr. Christie?
Governor Christie, you mean?
Oh, Governor Christie. I keep saying Mr. He'll be Mr. soon. What do you think my answer was? Nothing.
Nothing, no response.
Now, under 1985, if there's a conspiracy to deny a civil right, you could sue in the RICO. But when that was done, basically in the 1983 civil rights laws, every time they went after a public official, they would say, oh, I was only obeying the law of the state. Congress said, you're obeying the law of the state, that's why we put it in 1985. Well, I didn't know I was violating the Constitution. So, hey, Congress turned around and said, okay, you beat it. Now we're going to institute RICO 42, 1986. If you are informed that there is a violation of the United States Constitution, a conspiracy to deny a civil right, and you do nothing to rectify it, it reverts back to 1985 and you could be sued for RICO for denying a constitutional right.
And they were informed.
Registered return receipt letters. And you think
who did that?
I think it was that troublemaker.
Nick Purpura?
That's the guy.
That's the guy.
But
I
there's a
thought
reason.
so.
I don't want to go against my governor. I don't want to go against my legislature. I would have been asked for punishment, and by even even the United States Constitution and the state Constitution, they can be removed from office for high crimes and misdemeanor, bad behavior. I'm not asking for any of that.
Right.
Just restore my rights.
Right. Now,
I took an oath to protect my country. He took the oath to protect his country. And he was a prosecutor, and he doesn't know the law? But here's the thing that annoys me most. Throughout this campaign, he's running around saying, I'm for the Second Amendment. I would never infringe on the rights. It's the Democrats. The Democrats are useless. Wait a minute, Governor. John Drake is trying to get into the Supreme Court of the United States. March 15th of this year. Tell me it's not a conspiracy. You had your Attorney General send a brief to the Supreme Court of the United States and tell them, do not interfere or listen to any challenges about our state's, ready for this? Our state's concealment laws, concealed carry laws. Mm-hmm. So what he's saying is, listen, Supreme Court, I don't want you to hear any unconstitutional challenges to unconstitutional behavior in the People's Republic of the State of New Jersey.
And what was the response to that?
We don't know what the response is. Okay. I would think that the Supreme Court got hysterical laughing that you're telling us not to look at a constitutional challenge when we just passed Heller versus Washington. We just passed McDonald. Washington, D.C. just passed all these laws. The most liberal court in the United States passed the right of the Second Amendment in the Ninth Circuit. The Third Circuit told you. The Third Circuit's case against Mr. Drake had two bodies of law in it. One, that they said it was longstanding, and two, that the legislators couldn't know they were violating the Second Amendment. You can't have two bodies of law in law. It's impossible. It can't stand. But when you think about that, it even goes further with this long-standing baloney in New Jersey, which his acting attorney general put in. He put in, we had gun laws since 17-something. Okay. You didn't violate the United States Constitution until 1966. Not the 1920s, not the laws we're talking about. Because up to 1966, people in New Jersey, listen up. Up until 1966, you need not have a permit. You could strap on your weapon and go out of your home, go to the shooting range, go hunting, or just wear it for protection, and you needed nothing. That's more long-standing than the long-standing argument they used to deny a constitutional right. They were within the Second Amendment.
So let me just recap for a second. You're saying before 1966, or up until 1966, you could carry a gun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, on your person.
On your person. Yeah. Yeah.
But they did violate the Constitution, saying you couldn't have a concealed weapon prior to that.
Okay. Now, I'm going to stop you there for a second because I want to make sure we have enough time, because I thought it was very interesting as to how the counsel for the defendants in this case have responded to you. They have attempted to dismiss your suit 3 times now, is it?
Basically more than 3 times. But, but what they did...
Yeah, tell us about what happened, because I thought it was very interesting. The roadblocks...
On a RICO action, you are required to answer every charge with an affirmative defense. If you do not answer the plaintiff with that affirmative defense, you forfeit. So what they did is, after the time passed, the first one came in on August 6th, said, we intend to file a motion to dismiss in 30 days. Your 21 days passed. You forfeited.
Now, I just want to say one thing. I'm just getting signals from the floor. We've got about 8 minutes left.
I'll drum it up very quickly. They put one brief after another brief after another brief. Every time they put in a brief against me, it was untimely, procedurally infirm.
What does that mean?
That means legally they could not put them in.
Okay, but what is, when you say infirm, what does that mean? So people know, the audience doesn't know what that means.
To ask for an extension of time, you have to put in a motion.
Okay.
If you do not put in a motion, even the district court judge has no authority to extend your motion.
Okay, so they missed that.
They missed that. But they keep putting them in letter memorandums. They keep putting in all these jobs, but never once answering the charges in the brief that their clients did not violate the Constitution. Right. What they keep coming in with is an excuse and a technicality. He didn't dot the I. He didn't give us the... And they've actually lied. They've committed perjury, suborned perjury among themselves. And every time I sort of, let's say, kick one out of the box, another one pops up. That's what they keep doing, and they keep putting them in. First of all, you could not put in a motion after an issue is calendared.
All right, I don't know what that means.
The book is closed.
What does that mean?
But they keep putting them in, which I thank them, because as they do, I keep showing them they're lying. In the last one, which the judge received yesterday, my answer, they asked the judge to dismiss my case against the police chiefs on his own volition because I didn't put enough evidence in, and it's not really worthy, and there should be no trial here. Wait a minute. You're telling the judge to put it through, so he's the guilty one that I have to fight in the Third Circuit if he does so, without answering or following the judicial right, the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure. They're trying to put the onus on the court.
Oh, okay.
I pray this judge is an honest judge, which I looked at some of his decisions. He seems like he knows the Constitution.
So let me just understand that. How are they putting the onus on the court again? What are they saying?
They're using like, let's use Rule 12F. The judge can dismiss any case he wants. But you can't dismiss a constitutional case, which you always have standing with, on a technicality. It must go forward. Because a constitutional challenge must be answered. And they're doing everything not to have a record in the court. They refuse even to give me oral argument. They don't want to face me.
So a constitutional matter cannot be dismissed because you didn't dot the I.
Exactly. Even if I did, but even if I did some of the things they said, they couldn't dismiss it. They would give me a chance to refile. But there's no need to refile because these inept lawyers admitted they answered my question with a response. You can't respond and then say let it dismiss.
Didn't I also see in one of your responses there that you were not notified in a timely manner?
Oh, no. That was another thing that was really interesting.
Okay.
I think it could be just an oversight. But I wasn't notified of certain things.
Okay.
The fee, I believe I should have had, under the law, under the Supreme Court rules, on a constitutional issue, a person shouldn't have to pay a fee. I had to come up with a fee of $400 to file so I could get a summons and complaint. The summons. The complaint, they were issued. I didn't issue to both of them at the same time. Well, I couldn't answer them at the same time because the judge wouldn't issue the summons.
Yeah, so
they're playing games.
Yeah,
they're playing games. This is what I call the judicial con game.
Yeah, this is all part of that conspiracy, is it not?
Well, I can't put the judge in that, God forbid. I got a district court judge. No, I'm serious.
Well, I'm just thinking of the judiciary as part of the...
No, don't do that. New Jersey...
No, you said that in the thing, that the judiciary is part of this.
But what part of the judiciary? The state courts. We're not in a state court. We are in a federal court.
Okay.
It's obligation in Article 3 of the Constitution to protect the constitutional rights.
So viewers need to understand the difference.
Oh, yeah. We are not. They have to understand. And why I have on that chart that will be up when this film shows, the Supreme Court, with the Drake case, it was because Governor Christie turned around and told them not to hear the case. This is absurd.
Your case or this the other case?
The other case. I'm sure they're pulling every string in the book not to hear my case.
Now, let me ask you this. When is this supposed to be heard?
Well, the first case on the default judgment was supposed to be heard on the 5th.
Of?
Oh, the beginning of the month. That's past.
September.
Yeah. Now, so far, judge made no decision. And it looks like the 5th of this month, or the 8th of the last month, there's 3 motions there. A motion to dismiss... a motion for default judgment, which they defaulted. And by law, that clerk of the court should have put it in, and then the judge should have called me in, and we should have discussed what we were going to do about it. they did not put it on the docket. They don't want to show that they defaulted. The second one was a motion to after it was timely by the Department of Law. That the Department of Law keeps putting them in. The Department of Law, but they're untimely, and they put them in such a way after they're posted for calendared. Then you had another motion to dismiss of the police chiefs, untimely. I don't mind answering them. I don't mind answering them.
Have you answered them all now?
Oh, I answer them within 24 hours.
Okay.
And
now,
they give me enough law. I don't get any sleep. Okay. This weekend I got served Saturday. We were there today. Thank God for Joe. He took me down there and I filed it.
Okay.
You know.
Now, I have to tell you, we have about 4 minutes left. We have about 4 minutes left for this program. So I'm going to give you a chance in the next 4 minutes to wrap it up in a way that will make sense. Actually, we're down to 3 minutes. In a way that makes sense for our viewers. So take it anywhere you want to take it.
All I can say to our viewers is, you have constitutional rights. I've been watching my rights go down the drain. I grew up, 6 of us in a 1-bedroom house. I turned around and came out of service and went from a clerk to a managing director of the 4th largest institution in the country, financial institution. I opened the newspaper. I uncovered corruption of $500 million, and they took everything away from me. You cannot take away the most important gift we as Americans have, is our rights. And if we allow them to continue to take away and pick away at our civil rights, we'll no longer have a nation of freedom. Freedom and liberty, this is what it's about. They have no authority. And I can't say, as long as there's a breath in me, I'm going to fight them. But I'm not fighting them with rhetoric. I'm not fighting them with making up a story. I'm fighting them with the law. No one is above the law. No one. I don't care who you are, from the president on down to the foot soldier. We are all obligated to adhere to the Constitution.
I think people are probably surprised or interested in the fact that you're not an attorney.
Well, the reason was that, Doc, was very simple.
Yes.
When I uncovered the corruption in New York, they took everything from me. I spent $500,000 on attorneys, and everyone said, what are we going to do to destroy our families, to destroy our business? We can't go against the judges. We can't go against it. You can't? Well, guess what? This little boy's going to the library.
It sounds like that's another story.
It's an unbelievable story. But we're talking about here the most important thing in the world, our liberty and our freedom. And freedom.
We got 1 minute left.
That freedom is the most important thing we have as Americans. And each of you out there, it's in public office, you took that oath. Live by it. You took it under God.
Nick, thanks for coming in. Thanks, folks, for watching in. I'm hoping you saw this as an amazing presentation here of what's going on. This is Liberty Action Network. We'll see you again. Please tune in or check in with studentsforabetterfuture.com to get more information about what we're doing. Thank you. Have a good day.